Welcome to the Now You Know, Now Know Thyself YouTube series, educational series. I'm going to be talking about today, oh, by the way, I'm Alamasa X, and you can visit the website, of course, at nowknowthyself.com. But today's subject matter is going to be the true historical origins of the Christian Adam and Eve creation story alleged in the 1611 King James Bible. There's your story, my story, his story, and the truth. Our only interest is the highest truth. The Bible to your right is the Christian Nag Hammadi Scriptures written around 250 AD, or really quickly thereafter, approximately 1,400 years before the 1611 AD King James Bible. So this is a side note. These scriptures were supposed to have been destroyed during what they call the Dark Ages and the destruction of the library in Alexandria, Egypt, historically. Once you read these ancient Christian scriptures, you'll understand why. What I've done is a side-by-side comparison of the Adam and Eve creation story. The goal of this research work was to compare how much, if any, was the ancient Christian, Hebrew, Jewish Adam and Eve creation story in the 250 AD Nag Hammadi Scriptures changed by various authors of the 1611 King James Bible. And I will tell you up front, it changed a lot. These scriptures blew my mind. The Adam and Eve Genesis creation story is titled The Hypostasis of the Archons in the Nag Hammadi Christian Scriptures. It is a short 9-page read which starts on page 19 of the NagHam book PDF that I created to your right up here. We'll be going through that. This is what we'll be going through today. The Nag Hammadi Library, or also known as the Nag Hammadi Scriptures or Codices. This side-by-side comparison strictly focuses on the Adam and Eve creation story before the Council of Nicaea, 325 AD, which is the Roman Catholic Church under Constantine and the Vatican. That's who this council consisted of. Canonized what scriptures it would allow to be included, excluded, changed, and or deleted from the original text of your King James Bible. For a comprehensive review of the councils, please see the research below. But for a quick review, I'll show you this. The council, you can find the council on your let's see if I can find it real quick. Here it is right here. The First Council of Nicaea. Basically, as this reads, this ecumenical council was the first effort to attain consensus in the church through an assembly representing all Christendom. Hosius of Cordiduba, however you want to pronounce that, may have presided over its deliberation. Now, this is real history right here, guys. Its main accomplishments were the settlement of the Christological issue of the divine nature of God the Son and his relationship to God the Father. The construction of the first part of the Nicene Creed, mandating uniform observance of the date of Easter, and promulgated of early canon law. Now, if you're talking about that the scriptures are divine, this removes the divinity, where you have a bunch of men deciding what is going to be called Christendom and Christological order of, and they're going to determine what the divine nature of God and the Son of God is. This is a great read. It's just a truth that you must embrace if you want to understand what you're reading and why it says what it says. a quick overview. I won't read all of this, but I'll just read this part here. The first Council of Nicaea was the first ecumenical council of the church. Most significantly, it resulted in the first uniform Christian doctrine called the Nicene Creed. The first uniform Christian doctrine called the Nicene Creed. This is powerful stuff. With the creation of the creed, a precedent was established for subsequent local and regional councils of bishops to create statements of belief, and canons of doctrinal orthodoxy. The intent being to define unity of beliefs for the whole Christendom. They're telling you that they want to establish that everybody believes the same thing, whether it's true or not. And of course, it was derived from the Greek. And if any of you are studying anything, you know that. I got to read this part here too, because I've read this thing before and dissected it, and I was going to go over it intently specifically for that purpose. One purpose of the council was to resolve disagreements arising from the Church of Alexandria over the nature of Jesus and his relationship to the Father. In other words, here what they're talking about is, what is Jesus' relationship to the Father? Because before this creed, Jesus' relationship was totally different than the relationship we have today. If you do your research, you will find out that Jesus was not born of a Virgin Mary. That's just a fact. So they had to decide in this council meeting how Jesus would be looked upon. In particular, whether the Son had been begotten by the Father from his own being, and therefore having no beginning, or else created out of nothing, and therefore having a beginning. This says it all. We have been programmed to believe that Jesus is the Son of God. That concept comes from this council, because before that, more ancient documents, such as the document we're going to be talking about today, clearly establishes that the biblical Jesus was not, it was just a man. He was a prophet to the degree that he even existed. He was a prophet, and his name, of course, was not Jesus. We already know that, for those of you that have been doing any studying. So this is clear. For those Bible believers, this is where your doctrine came from. This is so important. And I don't want to get off track with what the subject matter is today, so I'll just leave it at that, because I do have to dissect this and go over this entire research paper on the first council. There are 4 councils total in a span of about 40 to 60 years that created a biblical text. The Council of Nicaea, the Council of Chalcedon, the Council of Carthage, the Council of Ephesus. So these were the councils that gave you your Christian Bible that as you understand it today. But I'm going to get back on track here. We're going to go back to what we were talking about. Okay, let's see. The highlighted scriptures, to quickly reference sections of the Nag Hammadi Scriptures contained in the KJV that reads almost identical. Simply hover over the highlighted text and a box will pop up giving you the chapter, verse, and scriptures of the KJV. This applies, that applies. Pop-up boxes begin on page 162. That is actually the actual page in the Nag Hammadi. Not all highlighted text contains a pop-up. And basically, and then I'll put, please note, the Nag Hammadi papyrus scrolls, scriptures, that could not be fully deciphered or indicated by the following symbols as you read the scripts. Okay, these symbols, question mark, ... and bracket, and ... That means that they could not decipher the papyrus that they were reading, translating. On that note, I implore you to give truth a chance, in that it may allow you to question the European religious traditions you've been given to believe in place of your rich ancient African ancestry. Okay, so I did a brief intro, but I gave you the intro when we clicked on the Bible Facts page, and the opening, of course, is the true origins of the Adam and Eve creation story before King James. This is the same summary that if you click on that I gave on the website. What I did not talk about is this part here where the study and research that I've done, it focuses on the Nag Hammadi titled The Hypostasis of the Archons. Okay, that's applicable to the King James Version of the Adam and Eve story, which is, it's only 9 pages. In that section, there are several sections, but we focus on these 9 pages. The Nag Hammadi Scriptures is 566 total pages and contains historical language and application of the King James Bible in its entirety. So the whole Nag Hammadi that was changed. This research provides the creation story before the Council of Nicaea 325 AD, canonized, which scriptures it would allow to be included, excluded, changed, and deleted from the biblical text of your current day King James Bible. We went through the King James, so if you want to see again the Council of Nicaea, you can click this web link. It'll take you to that reading. I'll be having a class on that specifically to discuss the importance of that council in the creation of the biblical text. This research is focused on the 1611 KJV Genesis Adam and Eve creation story and God's destruction of man and earth, leaving Noah and his family. So it's covering 2 things, because in the Nag Hammadi it kind of covers that in the same section. So it's, like I said, it's a short 9-page read, but it's a beautiful read once you get into it and do the cross comparison. So let's see. So the question is, to what extent were the Christian scriptures rewritten, repackaged, changed, and modified from the Christian Gnostic Nag Hammadi in 250 AD scriptures written 1,400 years approximately before the 15th generation 1611 King James Bible? That's the question. How much was changed? If it's the Word of God, if it was truly the Word of God, who has the power to change that? But I won't get on my soapbox. The Nag Hammadi codices were discovered in 1945, around the same time as the Hebrew Dead Sea Scrolls. Please click the link for review. So here I provided this link right here. If you click this link, I'm going to click it. If you click it, it's going to take you to the Nag Hammadi discovery. Okay, you can just go through that, read it, do your link check. So that's the 14 pages. This is not about that. This is about the Nag Hammadi, but I wanted to give you a little summary of what this manuscript is all about. Okay, it's a beautiful, beautiful read again. You know, the truth will always reveal itself whether you want it to or not. You know, am I pregnant? No, you're not. No, I'm not. Then 9 months later, you see the baby, you see the stomach. So what we're doing here is a side-by-side comparison of the ancient Nag Hammadi scriptures to today's King James Adam and Eve story. The goal of this research work is to compare how much, if any, the older Christian texts cited in the Nag Hammadi scriptures, written 1400 years prior to the 1611 King James Bible, was changed, deleted, etc. As I'm repeating myself, we do that a lot in the law, just to kind of really let it sink in what this focus is on. As I have discovered, it was significantly changed to fit the religious narrative we have today. Additionally, I wanted to establish that the creation story proffered in the King James Bible has been told over the millennia by civilizations that predate both the Nag Hammadi and the King James version of the Bible for more than 10,000 years, allowing the authors to plagiarize ancient texts and make it their own. In other words, what you're going to hear today and what we're studying today, the Nag Hammadi written in, discovered in 2050 AD, that was a plagiarization of older texts that came before it from the great Sumerian ancient civilization, from the Bhagavad Gita, the Enuma Elish. There's so much text out there that was written throughout the world that covers the creation story that had to be ignored, because what you'll learn is, if you do your study, you'll learn that the Greeks didn't create a thing on their own. They took and plagiarized everybody else's pre-existing text, papyrus, paperwork, walls, scrolls. Specifically, they really honed in on the Egyptians in the creation story, the Adam and Eve story, the Trinity story. It was all a packaging, but you have to do your homework in order to understand that. So I'm going to repeat the highlighted scriptures to quickly reference. What we're going to do now is we're going to go through each scripture, and it says to quickly reference sections of the Nag Hammadi Scriptures contained in the King James biblical creation story. Simply hover over the highlighted text, and the text box will pop up giving you the chapter, verse, and scriptures of the KJV that applies. That's what we're going to be doing here now, but you can do this at any time on your own. Follow this video while you do your research as I read through this. Highlighted pop-up boxes for the KJV scriptures begin on page 162, and not all things were highlighted as I had previously mentioned. Notice the Nag Hammadi scriptures that could not be fully deciphered will be indicated by these various symbols. I think I talked about that already. The creation story text of the Christian Nag Hammadi Scriptures. Most of you agree that the language of the biblical text has been changed significantly over the millennia. A plethora of thousands of years of translations, adaptations, and aka giving you multiple denominations. Thus, the change in the language of the Nag Hammadi has applied to the KJV after the Council of Nicaea canonization should be of no surprise. It must be noted that Christians, Hebrews, and Jews were henotheists and remain henotheists to this day, as the KJV clearly establishes. There's polytheist. We mostly commonly hear about the polytheist versus the monotheist, but nobody talks about the henotheist. Well, Christians, Hebrews, and Jews are henotheists. And the reason I'm not going to give you that definition is because I want you to go do your own research and see what that definition is, and you will understand why Christians, Hebrews, Jews, and most other religions, that anyone that adopts their belief from the King James Bible or an offshoot therefrom is a henotheist. Henotheist. Look it up. This is about education, so if you're serious about learning, then you'll do your own research on that as well. So let's continue. The Nag Hammadi Scriptures that were deleted, omitted, or casted out of the King James KJV to change the creation story narrative. And I did put casted out because the Bible did a lot of outcasting and casting out. So these are 4 things I point out that once you get into the Nag, you're going to see. Once we get into actual scriptures, you're going to see. The rulers in the Nag, they'll be addressed as rulers. The God are the gods. There are multiple gods referred to as the rulers, working together to create man through the Christian Gnostics. This is why Genesis 1 reads, "Let us make man in our image," because the gods were working as a team before they tried to go monotheistic with the one God concept. Number 2, Adam was created by a group of rogue lesser gods that did not know they were powerless to create man. Okay? They were powerless to create man. That's why Adam was initially created as a body and a soul without a spirit. I repeat, the old history before the 1611 King James Bible, you will see that Adam was initially created as a body and a soul without a spirit. Number 3, Adam was given a spirit by a woman from the higher realm, Sophia Pistis. She became his heavenly mother under the highest God. Later, the Greeks did not want the feminine energy to be the giver of life, the creator. So this was also changed throughout, making one woman a subclass to the old scriptures, when she, in fact, if you look at the ancient scriptures, even in the African scriptures, the woman was the authority to this, and to this day that hasn't changed. She's the giver of life. Man cannot give life. Only the woman can give life. That's why they call Earth Mother Earth, because she is the giver of life. The 4th issue we'll cover in the creation story is the first ark built by Noah was destroyed by Norea, Eve's daughter. She blew it up because Noah refused to let her board the ark. Noah had to build a second ark. Norea is completely excluded from the KJV story, because in order to include Norea, you have to look at all the older text, and include elements of that text you don't want included. Again, keep in mind that the Council of Nicaea, 325 AD, changed the story to be the story that you're knowing today, okay, as you go through this text. Again, this is about religious truth, education, and verifiable facts regarding the scriptures we have been given to believe versus the true language and origins of its creation. I will be making a YouTube video. This is that video in review of this research paper. So let's get started here. This is the Nag Hammadi library is what we're going to be studying. This is the cover. So when you're educating or giving somebody information, you want to do keep your receipts together. So I had to include the indexed portions of the library, which is on my website. You'll see that this entire book can be found on the education page. If you click on it, you'll get all the pages, so you can do your studying and research on that. Download the book PDF and do your studying and highlighting from that if you choose. This is just all the authors and a preface of how everything, and this is the table of content. As you can see, I'll briefly just hit the prayer of the Apostle Paul, the Apocrypha of James, the Gospel, the Gospel of Truth. So these were various books of the Bible that were labeled this way as opposed to what you have today. The treatise on the resurrection, okay? The Gospel of Philip, the Gospel of Thomas. What we're covering today is the HYPOSTASIS of the Archons, which covers which is directly covering, of course, the Adam and Eve creation story. The other part of that creation story is the origin of the world, starting on page 170 of the Nag Hammadi. Now, I didn't go over this part because these two work together. This on the origins of the world actually explains some elements of the hypostasis of the archons creation story. This is a more amplified version of the hypostasis of the archons. It gives you more detail on the creation story. So, and we're just trying to focus on the actual language of the creation story itself. So let's keep going here. Let me see. And you can just scroll through this, and you're going to see all the different books of the Nag Hammadi Bible, all the way up to 532 pages total. Well, it goes to 566, talking about nothing but the biblical text that you've been reading from the King James Bible and its creation. This is a preface of the Nag. We're not going to go over all that because it's a long discussion. This is just giving you some contextual. They want to verify and validate the papyrus's discovery, how it was created, the timeline, and all the various arguments that are made about how it was applied. So, the hypostasis of the archons. The hypostasis of the archons, reality of the rulers, is an anonymous tractate presenting an esoteric interpretation of Genesis 1 through 6, particularly in the form of a revelation discourse between an angel and a questioner. While the treatise illustrates a wide-ranging Hellenistic synchronism, the most evident components are Jewish, although in the present form, the hypostasis of the archons show clearly Christian features and thus can be considered a Christian work. So what they're saying here is this is what the Christians were following along with the Jewish as well in relationship to the Jewish story that they adopted in Genesis, which is from the Tanakh, the Torah, and those various ancient writings. Its theological perspective is a vigorous Gnosticism of perhaps Sethian affiliation. So if you do your research, you'll start understanding these various terms that they're using. They're just using terms that were in relationship to the biblical text as they understood it then, as well as in relationship to the language they used back then. And basically what this is saying is Gnosticism, Sethianism, what's that? What I'm trying to think of that. These are terms that are used to identify what we call today denominations. So back then there were multiple denominations of Christianity. So what they're doing is they're showing you that these writings were denominational, just as we have 300 or so denominations today in the United States or throughout the world, and as it relates to the biblical text. Back then they had multiple denominations as well. Nothing's changed. The Council of Nicaea, 325 AD, they simply wanted to say, here's the main book. You know, if you follow in another book, then you should be anathematized. But so most books that are written today, whether you're practicing as a Christian, a Jew, a Hebrew,